I'm Ashley Wilson, 22, just graduated from Southern Methodist University with an environmental science degree. My family threw this grand party at the Adolphus Hotel in Dallas, acting like they wanted to mend things after years of pushing me aside. But as I held my drink, I caught my sister hissing, "You're just a leech," and slipping something disgusting, a cockroach, into my glass when she thought I wasn't looking. My heart pounded. This wasn't just a cruel prank, it was a move to tear me down. Pulse racing, I stood, flashed a tight smile, grabbed a glass of water, and splashed it across her face. She shrieked, chaos erupted, guests whipped out phones, and the room froze. I kept that smile turned and strode out, leaving their plan in ruins. They thought they could break me, but I was about to turn the tables. Before I unravel how my family's betrayal backfired, I'd love to know what time it is where you're listening and which city you're in. It's amazing to see how far these stories reach. Like and subscribe if family drama hits close to home. My family wasn't about love. It was about control, image, and secrets. They played the part of perfect philanthropists, but behind closed doors, it was all criticism and favoritism. My sister was their star. I was the outsider. When a hidden truth surfaced, everything shifted, and that party became their chance to silence me. But I walked in with my eyes wide open, ready to expose their game. My family was never the warm sitcom kind. Dad built Wilson Investments from a small office in downtown Dallas into a financial empire bankrolling skyscrapers, shopping complexes, and infrastructure across Texas. His deals were cutthroat whispers on Wall Street, spoke of bribed officials and ignored regulations, but he covered it with splashy donations to local hospitals and schools. Mom from a long line of oil barons brought old money clout when they married, turning their firm into a social juggernaut. Their Highland Park mansion with its marble floors and chandeliers graced lifestyle magazines, but inside it was a stage for their obsession with control and appearances. My sister, 3 years older, was their pride. She aced every test, led the debate team, and graduated Harvard with honors, stepping straight into a VP role at the firm. They never missed her award ceremonies, lining our halls with her trophies. Family dinners revolved around her latest client wins, with Mom nodding like she'd won a prize herself. Me, I was the shadow. My straight A's and science fair medals got a curt. That's standard for us from Dad or Mom's critique about my posture in photos. They showed up to my events only when skipping would have raised eyebrows. They'd mapped my life finance degree, intern at the firm, eventually manage compliance while my sister ran the show. But everything shifted in high school during a class trip to the Trinity River. I saw murky water, dead fish floating, and locals complaining of health issues traced to a construction project Dad's firm funded. That lit a fire in me to study environmental science, to hold companies accountable. When I applied to Southern Methodist University for it, the house erupted. Dad slammed his fist, calling it useless activism. Mom wailed about tarnishing our legacy. I argued I'd make a real difference, not just chase profits. They relented, but only if I minored in business and worked summers at their firm. Those summers opened my eyes. I crunched numbers on projects, spotting discrepancies, reports, claiming clean sites while data showed toxic runoff. I kept quiet, knowing they'd dismiss me, but it fueled my resolve. College at SMU gave some freedom, but every holiday brought snide remarks about my green phase. When I landed an internship with a nonprofit tracking industrial pollution, they cut my allowance, forcing me to juggle loans and part-time jobs. I didn't back down. The one person who saw me was my grandma. A brilliant accountant, she'd been sidelined in her husband's firm decades ago, her ideas ignored. Before she passed when I was 16, she'd sneak me cash for books, whispering stories of women who fought for justice. "Don't let them cage you," she said, her eyes fierce. She promised I'd carve my own path, and her words stuck like armor. I met Kimberly at SMU's freshman orientation, a journalism major, with a knack for sniffing out secrets. We bonded over late-night study sessions, her sharp questions pushing my research deeper. Heather, who I connected with through an environmental club, worked in a lab testing water samples. Her expertise on pollutants like heavy metals from construction runoff helped me understand the damage Dad's projects caused. They became my chosen family, filling the void my real one left. Rumors started swirling senior year. Heather overheard colleagues discussing EPA probes into health spikes near Trinity River sites linked to Wilson-backed developments. Kimberly dug up articles on falsified environmental assessments hinting at bribes. I started connecting dots, sensing the firm's clean image was a lie. Then 3 months before graduation, everything changed. Dad's lawyer, during a routine trust meeting, let slip a bombshell about my grandma's will. It wasn't just money, it held secrets that could unravel everything my family built. Their reaction was instant. Dad's calls, usually cold and demanding, turned oddly sweet, urging me to visit. Mom sent gifts, a stark shift from her usual critiques. My sister's texts, once smug, grew probing, asking about my plans. They pushed me to join the firm, dangling job offers I didn't want. When I refused, the pressure tightened, tuition payments stopped, my car lease canceled. I leaned on Kimberly and Heather, who urged me to stay sharp. Kimberly even tracked down a leaked memo hinting at a company audit. Then came the invitation, a family party at the Adolphus, billed as a chance to reunite. It reeked of a setup. Kimberly warned me to watch my back. Heather offered to analyze anything suspicious. As the date loomed, I felt the walls closing in. They weren't just after control anymore. Something bigger was at stake, and I was walking straight into their trap. Grandma's will hit like a grenade. 3 months before my graduation, the family lawyer let it slip during a trust review at Wilson Investments' downtown office. It wasn't just $12 million in stocks and bonds accessible. Now that I'd finished college, it came with a locked USB drive secured by a code only I knew. When I cracked it open late one night, hands trembling, I found scanned emails, contracts, and photos from Grandma's auditing days. They showed Wilson Investments bribing city officials to pass environmental inspections, hiding toxic runoff from their Trinity River projects that poisoned local water, causing cancers and illnesses in nearby communities. Grandma's handwritten note read, "Ashley used this to break their lies. She'd known their crimes and trusted me to act." Kimberly was with me when I opened it, her journalist instincts kicking in. She recognized names in the email's executives still at the firm, some tied to Dad. Heather, who'd been testing water samples for her lab, confirmed the chemicals listed matched heavy metals found downstream from Wilson-funded sites. If this got out, the firm would face lawsuits, fines, maybe collapse. The money gave me freedom. The files gave me power. But if I didn't claim the trust or something happened to me, it all reverted to my parents as next of kin. Their behavior shifted overnight. Dad stopped his usual lectures about joining the firm and started calling daily voice syrupy, asking about my future plans. Mom sent care packages to my apartment, a far cry from her cold critiques. My sister, who'd always texted smug jabs, began probing about my post-graduation goals, her tone too calculated. Kimberly flagged it as manipulation. Heather said it screamed desperation. Then the hammer dropped. They canceled my tuition payments for my final semester, forcing me to scramble for loans. Dad emailed a job offer for the firm's compliance team, saying it was time to step up. When I declined, citing my nonprofit internship, the car I'd used a company lease got repossessed. I fought back quietly. Kimberly dug deeper, pulling public records on Wilson's projects. She found a whistleblower report buried by red tape linking their developments to health complaints. Heather ran tests on Trinity River samples I'd collected, confirming illegal levels of lead and chromium chemicals tied to their sites. We met at a coffee shop near SMU, huddling over laptops. Kimberly whispered about an EPA investigation gaining traction targeting firms like Wilson's for falsified reports. Heather warned that companies this dirty often played hardball to silence threats. I knew I was that threat. The pressure kept mounting. Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced, inspecting my bookshelves, asking about old family documents. My sister sent a late-night text, "You're making things harder than they need to be." I ignored it, but my gut twisted. Kimberly hacked into a public database, finding a memo about an internal audit at the firm Dad was scrambling to cover tracks. Heather offered to analyze any suspicious substances if things got weird. Their support kept me grounded, but I felt the noose tightening. Then the party invite landed. A family reconciliation at the Adolphus Hotel set for the weekend after graduation. The email signed by Mom gushed about celebrating new beginnings. It felt off too sudden, too warm. Kimberly's eyes narrowed when I showed her. "This screams setup," she said, pulling up an article about a Wilson gala where they'd schmoozed regulators. Heather suggested I bring a sample kit just in case. I agreed, slipping a small vial and my phone into my purse set to record. 2 nights before the party, Kimberly called voice low. She'd overheard a conversation at a bar near the firm's office. 2 execs mentioned Dad's panic about a family problem and an EPA probe closing in. They'd hinted at handling it at an upcoming event. My heart sank. Heather texted later saying she'd found a lab contact who could rush test anything I brought her. I barely slept replaying Grandma's note, "Break their lies." I wasn't just fighting for myself, it was for the communities they'd poisoned, the truth they'd buried. The morning of the party, I checked my phone's battery, ensuring it could record for hours. Kimberly sent a final tip. She'd caught wind of a plan to neutralize me at the event, something about making me look unstable. Heather warned that certain chemicals could cause confusion, mimicking drunkenness, without leaving a trace on standard tests. My hands shook as I dressed, choosing a simple black outfit to blend in. I wasn't walking into a celebration, I was stepping into a battlefield. As I drove to the Adolphus, the hotel's grand facade loomed all glass and gold. Guests in suits and dresses milled outside their laughter, a stark contrast to the dread in my chest. Kimberly and Heather would be nearby, ready to back me up. I clutched my phone, the USB drive hidden in my bag, Grandma's words echoing. Whatever they had planned, I'd be ready not just to survive, but to turn their game against them. The Adolphus Hotel's ballroom sparkled under chandeliers filled with Dallas elites, sipping cocktails, their chatter masking the tension in my chest. I stood near the bar phone hidden in my palm set to record. Dad mingled with investors, his smile polished, but eyes darting to me. Mom in a designer gown worked the room, nodding at compliments about our perfect family. My sister hovered nearby, her usual smug grin replaced with a nervous edge. Kimberly's tip from last night echoed something was planned to make me look unstable. Heather's warning about confusion-inducing chemicals lingered as I scanned the crowd. A waiter offered me a flute of champagne from a silver tray. I took it, fingers brushing the cold glass, when I caught my sister's whisper from a corner, "You're just a leech," her voice venomous. She thought I didn't see her slip something into my drink, a cockroach, its legs twitching in the bubbles, laced with something worse, I was sure. My pulse spiked. This wasn't just a cruel jab, it was meant to humiliate me, maybe make me act erratic in front of everyone. Kimberly, stationed across the room, gave a subtle nod, her phone angled to capture everything. Heather waited outside, ready to test any evidence I could grab. I'd planned for this thanks to their heads up. Smirking, I grabbed a water glass from a passing tray, stood tall, and splashed it across my sister's face. She shrieked, makeup streaking the cockroach, tumbling onto the floor as guests gasped. "What the hell, Ashley?" she sputtered, but I saw panic in her eyes. She hadn't expected me to catch her. I didn't stop there. I'd swapped our drinks moments earlier, palming her untouched glass while passing mine to her in the chaos of a toast announcement. To family unity, Dad had boomed, raising his flute. I raised hers, watching her clutch mine, oblivious. The room quieted as she took a sip, then another. Her face twisted, eyes glazing over. Whatever she'd slipped in Heather later confirmed it was a mild hallucinogen meant to make me slur and stumble was hitting her now. She staggered, grabbing a table, and blurted, "We had to stop her. The money, the files. They'll ruin us." Guests froze, phones out, recording her meltdown. Mom rushed over, hissing, "Pull yourself together," but my sister babbled on, "The river. We hit it." Dad said, "Make her look crazy." The crowd murmured, investors exchanging looks. Dad's face drained of color, his glass trembling. I kept my phone rolling, capturing every word, every glance. I stepped forward, voice steady. "Care to explain, sis?" Her eyes widened, realizing she'd drunk her own trap. She lunged at me, slurring, "You were supposed to fall apart," but a waiter caught her as she swayed. Kimberly signaled she'd live-streamed the outburst to a journalist contact. I slipped my original glass with the bug still inside into a Ziploc from my purse, ready for Heather's lab. The plan was unraveling faster than they'd expected. Dad pushed through the crowd, grabbing my arm. "This is a misunderstanding," he growled, but his voice shook. Mom's social smile cracked as she whispered, "We'll fix this." I shook Dad off, holding up my phone. Fix what? Her confession, it's already out there. I nodded to Kimberly, who sent the video to her contact. Guests were whispering, some slipping out, others texting furiously. The air felt electric, like a storm breaking. I dialed 911, voice calm but loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I need police at the Adolphus Hotel ballroom. I have evidence of tampering with my drink and a public confession of fraud." Dad's jaw clenched. Mom's hands trembled. My sister slumped in a chair, muttering nonsense, her perfect image shattered. Sirens wailed outside within minutes, red and blue lights flashing through the windows. As officers entered, I handed the Ziploc to one, explaining the bug and suspected substance. Kimberly approached, showing her footage to another cop. Heather texted she was already at her lab, ready to test the sample. The crowd parted as police questioned my sister, who couldn't string a sentence together. Dad tried to intervene, shouting about family matters, but an officer cut him off, asking for his ID. I locked eyes with Mom, her face a mix of rage and fear. "You pushed too far," I said, low enough for only her to hear. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The officer with my evidence bag looked at me. "You're the one who called this in." I nodded. "I've got more files that explain why they did this." His eyes sharpened, motioning me aside. Kimberly whispered, "The video's gone viral." Local news picked it up. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I ignored them, focusing on the officer. The ballroom felt like a courtroom already with guests as witnesses to my family's collapse. My sister's words, money files, river hung in the air, damning them. I'd walked into their trap, but I'd turned it into theirs. Now the real fight was just beginning. The police escorted my sister out of the Adolphus ballroom, her face pale and eyes unfocused, still muttering from the hallucinogen she'd meant for me. I handed the officer the Ziploc with the tainted glass, explaining how I'd caught her tampering. Kimberly's video, now viral on local news sites, showed her outburst naming money files and river pollution, while Heather's lab contact confirmed the substance a synthetic hallucinogen not lethal, but designed to make me look unhinged. Guests' recordings had spread online, and by morning, Dallas headlines screamed about Wilson Investments' family scandal. I met Kimberly and Heather at a diner near SMU the next day, my hands still shaking. Kimberly showed me her phone. Her journalist contact had forwarded the video to the FBI, who were already probing the firm for fraud. Heather's lab results came through. The cockroach was coated with the drug likely from a private supplier tied to Dad's network. I pulled out Grandma's USB drive, its files, detailing bribes and falsified reports that hid toxic dumping in the Trinity River, causing health crises in nearby communities. "This is bigger than us," Heather said, eyes wide. "This could end them." The FBI moved fast. Agents contacted me within days requesting the drive. I handed it over, explaining Grandma's notes and my sister's confession. Kimberly provided her footage, now backed by guest videos, while Heather submitted her lab analysis. The investigation exploded, uncovering emails where Dad instructed executives to bury environmental violations. One file showed Mom signing off on payments to silence health complaints. The Trinity's pollution lead and chromium from Wilson-funded projects was linked to cancer clusters in Oak Cliff neighborhoods. A month later, I sat in a small FBI office downtown, across from Agent Novak. He spread documents across the table, contracts, bank transfers, and photos of illegal waste sites, all matching Grandma's files. "Your family's been dodging audits for years," he said. "Your sister's slip-up gave us probable cause for search warrants. They'd raided the firm's offices and our Highland Park mansion, finding laptops with deleted but recoverable emails. One outlined a plan to discredit me as unstable to block my inheritance claim." Novak's eyes softened. "You're lucky you caught it in time." Kimberly kept digging, connecting with a whistleblower who'd been fired for questioning the firm's practices. Heather linked me with an EPA contact confirming the Trinity's contamination matched Wilson's projects. I spent nights poring over data, using my environmental training to map pollution patterns for the agents. The firm's stock plummeted as investors pulled out, spooked by the news. Mom called once, voice icy, demanding I fix this mess. I hung up, blocking her number. Dad sent a lawyer's letter claiming I'd fabricated everything. I forwarded it to Novak. 2 months after the party, the trial began at the Dallas County Courthouse. I walked in with Kimberly and Heather, my stomach in knots. The courtroom buzzed with reporters, their cameras flashing as I took the stand. I presented Grandma's files, explaining how they proved years of fraud and environmental harm. My voice stayed steady, detailing the river's chemical levels and health impacts, backed by Heather's lab work. The prosecution played Kimberly's video, my sister's slurred confession echoing, "We hit it." Dad said, "Make her look crazy." Jurors leaned forward, faces grim. Dad sat at the defense table, jaw tight, avoiding my gaze. Mom's eyes were red, her composure gone. My sister looked smaller, her confidence replaced by a blank stare. Their lawyer, a sharp-suited man, argued it was a family misunderstanding, claiming the hallucinogen was a prank gone wrong. But the evidence was brutal emails, bank records, and water samples tied to cancer cases. A surprise witness appeared, Aunt Margaret, Mom's estranged sister. She'd left the family decades ago after refusing to sign off on Dad's early shady deals. They pushed me out for asking questions, she testified, her voice firm. "Ashley's telling the truth. Margaret found me after my testimony, gripping my hand. I should have stayed in touch," she said. "Your grandma warned me they'd turn on you too." Her support felt like a lifeline, a piece of family I hadn't known I had. Kimberly and Heather flanked me outside, shielding me from reporters shouting questions. "You nailed it," Kimberly whispered. Heather nodded. The data was airtight. The prosecution's closing was merciless, linking the firm's fraud to community suffering and my sister's act to a cover-up. The jury deliberated for hours, tension thick. When they returned, the verdict hit guilty on counts of fraud, environmental violations, and attempted tampering. Dad got 20 years, Mom 15, my sister 5. The firm was ordered to liquidate assets seized for victim restitution. Reporters swarmed as we left, but Margaret guided us to a waiting car. In the courthouse hallway, I faced Dad one last time. His eyes burned, but I held my ground. "You brought this on yourself," I said, voice cold. He didn't respond, just turned away. Mom tried to speak, but I walked past. My sister, out on bail until sentencing, stared at the floor. I felt no guilt, only resolve. They'd tried to erase me, but I'd dismantled their empire instead. Kimberly's phone buzzed with updates. The EPA launched a cleanup fund for the Trinity, citing our evidence. Heather's lab was hired to monitor it. Margaret offered to help me navigate what came next. As we drove away, the courthouse fading, I knew this wasn't the end. The truth had broken them, but it had also set something in motion, something bigger than their lies. 6 months after the trial, I stood on the porch of Grandma's Cedar Creek Lake House, the late November breeze cool against my skin. The guilty verdicts had unraveled everything. Dad got 20 years, Mom 15, my sister 5. Their sentences tied to fraud, environmental crimes, and tampering with my drink. Wilson Investments collapsed, its assets seized to fund cleanup and victim restitution for the Trinity River's poisoned communities. I refused all contact, no visits, no letters, no second chances. They'd tried to destroy me for money and secrets. I was done carrying their weight. I moved into the lake house, part of Grandma's trust, a quiet retreat an hour from Dallas, where I'd spent childhood summers with her, free from family pressures. The $12 million now mine through the ironclad trust felt less like wealth and more like responsibility. I set up the Helen Wilson Environmental Foundation, channeling funds to clean the Trinity and provide medical care for affected families. Heather's lab took the lead on monitoring their tests, already showing reduced toxin levels. Kimberly, now freelancing for a Dallas news outlet, published exposés on corporate fraud, citing our case as a wake-up call. Aunt Margaret, who'd re-entered my life after the trial, helped navigate the legal maze, her own history of being ostracized for questioning Dad's deals giving her a sharp edge. The firm's downfall dominated headlines for weeks. Former employees came forward revealing years of coerced silence on falsified reports. Families in Oak Cliff filed lawsuits linking cancers to the river's contamination, their stories echoing Grandma's files. I volunteered with a local water quality group, finding purpose in testing samples and rebuilding what my family had broken. Margaret joined me sometimes, sharing memories of Grandma's fight against the same greed decades ago. I sold the Highland Park mansion, its sterile perfection holding no value for me. The proceeds went to the foundation, ensuring long-term support for victims. Kimberly and Heather moved into a loft nearby, our bond stronger than ever. We'd spend evenings at the lake house laughing over coffee, their support, a stark contrast to the family I'd left behind. Margaret, now a regular visitor, brought stories of her own rebellion against the Wilsons, helping me process the betrayal without anger consuming me. One chilly morning, I sat with a mug of tea watching the lake shimmer. The weight of the past year, catching my sister's scheme, exposing their crime, standing in court, had changed me. I'd learned a hard truth. Blood doesn't make family actions do. My parents and sister chose money and power over me, willing to humiliate and harm to protect their lies. I didn't forgive them. They'd shown no remorse, even in court, blaming me for their ruin. Cutting them off wasn't just survival, it was freedom. I chose people who lifted me up: Kimberly, Heather, Margaret. They were my real family, built on trust, not control. To anyone listening, here's my warning. Toxic family can hurt you for their own gain. Money, status, secrets. Don't wait for them to change. Recognize the red flags: early manipulation, favoritism, control, and protect yourself. True family doesn't tear you down, they stand by you. Independence is your strength, and living authentically free from their grip is the greatest victory. I found mine by exposing the truth not just for me, but for those my family harmed. You can too choose who you surround yourself with, and let that define your worth. Thank you for listening to my journey. If this resonated, hit like, subscribe, and comment below. Have you ever faced toxic family drama? Share your story. It might help someone else. I'm stronger now, standing here at the lake, no longer the leech they called me, but a woman who broke their cycle. The future's mine to build, and I'm just getting started.